So today's agenda, basically introductions, we'll be introducing ourselves. We'll be talking about what financial aid actually is and describing FAFSA and TASFA and the differences between both. We'll be discussing different types of aid you can actually receive, like scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. We'll be going through verification and renewal, and then we'll be playing a trivia game. At the very end, we'll have a recap of everything we've gone through, and then throughout the presentation, there is room for questions. Let's move on. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves one by one.
Hi everyone, my name is Zar. I am a college access coach at Lehman this year, and I love going to the beach. Fun fact about me.
Hey y'all, my name is Ana Karen. I am a college access coach this year at ACC. And a fun fact about me is I graduated from St. Edward's, and that's one of my graduation photos.
Hello, you all. I am Jess Contreras. I am college success coach, and a fun fact about me is that I have 7 other siblings.
I'm Daniela Reyes. I am a program coordinator here at College Forward. Fun fact about me is I live in California, so it's a little earlier for me. We'll get started with a deep dive on financial aid, and Jess will take it away from here.
Yes, thank you, Daniela. So let me get started. So this is just a fun fact for you all. So according to the Nerd Wallet, the class of 2017 left around 2.3 billion in free unacclaimed federal grants. Over 600,000 students would have qualified if they would have just applied. So that's just kind of like a glimpse of all the money that is available for you all. Please take advantage. There's so many opportunities out there for you to get free money that you do not have to pay back. So apply for as much as you can. Okay, so before we get into the meat of the presentation, I do want to say that it is okay if you do not grasp everything we say today. We do have quite a lot of things to say. So I don't expect you to be an expert by the end of the presentation. Just know that when the time comes, you will have your coach who you can reach out at any time with questions. It also might be that maybe you don't have any questions right now, but later on when you get ready, you will, and your coach is always going to be there to support you. Also, please feel free to drink some water, get up, take a stretch break, just do anything that's going to make your body feel better during the presentation. And so, yes. So you might be here for the first time. Maybe you are getting ready to apply and you kind of just want to see what the application is. Or maybe this is the second year you're applying for financial aid and you need a refresher. Either or, you are in the right place, and I hope that you can take something away from this presentation. Yes, so this is just a quick comparison, FAFSA and the TASFA. So pretty much the FAFSA and the TASFA are both applications that make you eligible for financial aid. And that is money that's being supplied to you other than your own family. This includes like scholarships, grants, work study, anything of that sort. And Zara will talk about that a little more later on in the presentation today. So let's get started. So the FAFSA is your federal aid. So that's any money that's coming from the federal government. Your TASFA is your Texas state aid. So pretty much think about it like this, like you have 2 buckets of money, one for the FAFSA and one for the TASFA. As you're applying and you're being awarded money, that money is being taken out of each of their buckets. And so let's say that you apply for the TASFA, you're going to take money out of the Texas state. The FAFSA is an online application, and there's also a mobile app that's very user friendly. So I highly encourage y'all to use that if you're getting ready to apply for the FAFSA. Your TASFA, that's a paper application. So for each school that you apply to, you will be submitting a TASFA. For your FAFSA, you do have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident. And your TASFA, if you're undocumented or DACA, then the TASFA is for you. Besides that, there are some Texas residency requirements you have to meet for the TASFA, and those include having graduated from a Texas high school or getting a GED from Texas. It also includes living in Texas for at least 3 consecutive years leading up to high school graduation. You have to live in Texas 1 year right before the semester you enroll in college. And you also, the TASFA is also something that's only special in the state of Texas. So if you're thinking about going out of state, maybe to North Carolina, you will be using the FAFSA. And for both applications, you will need your parent tax report if you are a dependent student. And I will get into what it means to be a dependent student later on in the presentation. Okay, so pretty much I'm going to dive into the FAFSA first. So your FAFSA is your free application for federal student aid. Again, that's money coming from the federal government. This does include like state and institutional money as well. So to apply for the FAFSA, you do want to go to fafsa.ed.gov. You want to make sure that the website ends in gov. If it doesn't, you're probably in the wrong place. You also want to make sure that they're not asking you for money, because this is a free application for y'all. If it is asking you for money, you want to make sure you're running away from this website because it's no good. So just a little bit about the process. So once you submit your FAFSA, the U.S. Department of Education will look through your information. They will see what you're eligible for. Once they have that information, they will send that right over to each of the schools that you have included on your FAFSA, and they will come up with a financial aid package. This includes grants and scholarships, work study, and loans. You want to make sure that you're comparing your financial aid packages when they are awarded to you, because it may be that some schools are offering you more money in scholarships than other schools. You kind of just have to weigh like what is the best option for you. Okay, so now that you know where you will be going to apply for your FAFSA, the next thing you want to do is begin gathering required documentation. So the first thing you're going to need is your social security number or your alien registration number. Yes, that is unfortunate language. I do want to point out that if your parents are not citizens and they don't have a social security number, that is totally okay. What will happen is that if you are required to include your parent information, you will just enter all zeros for their social security number. And again, I do repeat, we are sharing a lot. So if any questions come up, please feel free to drop them in the chats, and we will get them answered for you. You also need your 2020 income taxes. And I want y'all to remember that it is prior year taxes. So pretty much all you have to do is subtract 2 years from the school year you will be applying for. So let's say that you are getting ready to apply for 2022-2023 school year. You are going to be using your 2020 income taxes. Other things you're going to need are your W-2s and bank statements. You want to make sure that you are planning ahead and gathering this documentation now, just because sometimes you do have to get that information from the IRS, and they do have, a lot going on. So it does take some time, and I want y'all to get that as soon as y'all can, so you have it ready to go. The application does open this Friday, October 1st. It is a first come, first served basis. The priority deadline is January 15. You can still submit after this date, but it's very, very important that you do it as soon as it opens. And the reason why is that, like I was saying in the beginning, you know, both the state and the federal government have their buckets of money. You want to make sure that you're taking that money, you know, right when the bucket is full, because if you wait till the end, then there's not going to be much to pull from, and your award is not going to be, you know, as much as if you would have applied initially when the application first opened. I also want to point out that it is okay if you don't have all these documents. When you're getting ready to apply, you always have the ability to save your application and come back to it whenever you do have that documentation. So of course, it's not something you have to wait for. So now that you know where you will be going to apply, what documents you will need, now you will create an FSA ID. So your FSA ID is pretty much your electronic signature. And if you are a dependent student and you are including your parents on here, you only need one parent, so you only have to create one FSA ID for them. Now, you do need your social security number to create an FSA ID. So if your parent does not have a social security number, that is totally okay. What will happen is that at the end, when you're getting ready to sign your application, the parent without a social security number will just print out a signature page and mail that in. So pretty much a signature page is just a page with your information about the application, and then it's going to be given a number, an application number, so that when it's mailed in, you know, everything can be organized and matched to you and it doesn't get confused with anyone else's. To apply to get an FSA ID, you will go to fsaid.ed.gov. And there's like instructions on there if you're not clear on how to create that. Like I was saying, you will need a social. Other things you will need include, you know, like your email, your date of birth, some other basic information. It literally like only takes 15 minutes, and it's something that you can do right now. But maybe you want to wait till the end. I don't want y'all to miss any important information. And just so you have that, you'll be one step closer to completing your FAFSA. You also want to make sure that you're keeping your IDs and your passwords in a very safe place and somewhere that you will be able to come back and always remember, just because it can be a hassle trying to retrieve that information. And remember, with your FAFSA, you do have to apply every year. So you want to make sure, you know, you have those FSA IDs ready to go next year when you're getting ready to apply. I'm gonna drink some water because my throat's a little dry. Give me one sec. Okay. So now let's get into the application itself. So these are the 7 sections on the application. Your section 1 is just pretty much your student demographics. This is basic information that includes, you know, your date of birth, your address, email, phone number, all that good stuff. Your section 2 is just your school selection. You can include up to 10 schools on this part. Now, let's say that you have 12 schools on your list. You are able to come back to your application after the school has received your information and you receive an email from them. So yes, you can do more than 10 schools for sure. Your section 3 is just your dependency status. That is whether you're a dependent or independent student. Again, I will get into that a little more later on in the presentation. Your section 4 is just your parent demographics. This is basic info for your parents if you are a dependent student. If you are an independent student, you don't have to include information for your parents. Your section 5 is just financial information. This is just tax stuff. So if you worked, you know, if you're including your parents and they worked, this is where you're going to be including their information. This section also has an IRS data retrieval tool, which is very neat because it means it is less work for you. It's just pretty much, this is going to link your application to the IRS. And instead of you manually having to input like everything on your tax stuff, it's automatically just going to put it into your application. Your section 6, you're pretty much just going to sign and submit, but before you do that, you want to make sure that you double check everything. I know I had a student share with me that they applied for the wrong school year one time and their award came all late and they didn't get as much money because, you know, they was at the end. So you want to make sure that you're checking the school year you're applying for. You also want to make sure that your name that you include on your application is the same as it is on your social security card. Because if it is not, then that's gonna cause an issue. Your application may be flagged for verification, and we just do not want your application to be prolonged, like the process to be prolonged, because, you know, we want to make sure that it is submitted and processed. Your section 7 is just confirmation. You will be getting a confirmation email 3 to 5 days after you have submitted your application. So that was the FAFSA. Please feel free. I'm going to give y'all a few seconds. If y'all have any questions or anything I can help clarify, please feel free to drop them in the chat or also put them in the Q&A, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
We have a question on the Q&A. They're asked, TASFA, is TASFA only for non-citizens or for all? TASFA is for students who do not have a social security number or an alien registration number. So that does mean that they're a non-citizen, but a resident can still use the FAFSA. So if a student is undocumented or is under DACA, they should go ahead and do the TASFA. And Zara is typing an answer too, so she'll have that in the chat as well. I just wanted to have it so we can have it recorded. We have another question. What if my parents are on social security? It doesn't matter. They can still fill out the FAFSA. It'll ask you these questions. As long as they have a social security number, it means that they can still submit a FAFSA. Those are the questions we have so far. I think I'm going to check the chat, see if we have questions there. Okay, what happens if your parents haven't filed their taxes? That is a great question. And what I'm going to be very honest with you, if your parents do not file taxes, you will not receive financial aid, whether that's Texas or state or federal aid. You can apply to submit a non-filer form where it just means that they don't have to submit to file taxes. That's okay. Some families don't have to submit taxes, but you have to file a form stating that you don't have to file taxes for whatever reason.
Yes, those are all very good questions. I'm going to be sharing a resource with you all if your parents haven't filed, but are getting ready to file. And we'll be sharing that a little more in the upcoming slides. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the TASFA, and this is the Texas application for state financial aid. So this is only a Texas thing. I am from North Carolina, and we don't have such, great thing. It's just FAFSA, and that's what we have. But TASFA, so to apply for the TASFA, you will go to collegeforalltexans.com and print out an application, or how many ever you need for the schools that you are applying to. Again, the TASFA is for students who are undocumented and meet Texas residency requirements. Again, you just have to fill an application for each school that you're applying to and send it in. You want to make sure that you are keeping a copy of your TASFA just because we want to make sure that you have something to go back to in case your application is not received, or I don't know, it gets lost in the mail, which I hope that's not happening. But we want to make sure that you have those copies. You know, I've heard students say that their TASFAs were never received by the school. And so we don't want that to happen to you and you not have those copies. So also the same deadlines, it opens up October 1st and the priority deadline is October 15th. I do reiterate that you can still submit after this date, but you want to make sure that you're applying as soon as you can because it is when the bucket is the most full and when there's the most money. Okay, so now that you know where you're going to be going to get the application, the next thing you want to do is start thinking about those documents that you're going to need and getting them. So to fill out the TASFA, you will need an individual taxpayer identification number. This is your ITIN. Your ITIN is pretty much just a tax number that allows people without social security numbers file their taxes. You will also need your federal income tax return from 2020. Schools will most likely require this all the time. If you don't, they will require it. So we want to make sure that you are requesting those if you don't already have them. Like Daniela was saying, sometimes some families don't have to file for taxes. So for those families, you want to make sure that you're getting a verification of non-filing letter. This is information that can be gathered from the IRS. You just have to send a request and it'll take some time for them to get back to you. That's why it's very important that you ask for this information now. So they're working on that. Other things you will need are your W-2s and your residency affidavit. So that's pretty much just a legal document that states that you will be applying for your residency as soon as you can. Most schools, they're going to ask you for this, so you want to make sure that you're getting that. If you are a male, you will need your selective service registration card. You can easily pick this up at a post office, fill it out, or you can also print this out online and do it that way as well if you would prefer. Some schools do ask for worksheets or maybe other specific forms. So you want to make sure that you are just double checking with your schools when it comes to your application. You know, not all schools are the same. Some schools have their own special maybe dates, deadlines, forms going on. So you want to make sure that you are double checking with them always. Okay, so if you're a high school student and you're getting ready to apply for the TASFA, again, you will fill out an application for each school. We highly encourage you to, you know, apply for colleges and get that college ID because you want to make sure that you include that ID on your TASFA. It's not required, but it's best to have to mail it in with your application just so your information stays organized. And also it's so much easier for the college to just have all your information together. Again, you can mail it out without this, but we highly encourage you to include it. So therefore, start applying to those colleges. It will make it so much easier. And then you just mail it in and you're ready to go. So the TASFA has pretty much similar sections. I'm going to go over them. So section 1 is just, again, student information, basic info. And if you are a male, this is where you will include a copy of your selective service statement of registration. Section 2 is just your dependency status. This is if you're a dependent or independent student. Again, I will be talking about that later on in the presentation. But for now, bear with me. Section 3 is just pretty much basic parent information if you are a dependent student. Section 4 is your income information. That is your information and your parent information if you are a dependent student. Section 5 is your household information. So this is info for members of your household. I do want to say that let's say that you have a sibling and your parents provide more than half of their support to your sibling, and let's say your sibling lives in another, I don't know, state or household, they are still considered a household member, so they will count towards that. And your section 6 is pretty much your signatures. The student and the parent both have to sign, and again, that's only if you're a dependent student. You want to make sure that if your parent maybe lives out of state or just doesn't live with you, you are planning ahead and getting their signature. You don't want to sign for them, and you don't want to have another adult sign for them, because that can just cause issues within your application. And again, remember, we do not want the process to be prolonged. Just because, like, if you miss anything, or maybe the signature is not correct, your application can be flagged, and it's just going to be a longer process. You also want to make sure that you just include all the documents, because your application is not complete until the school receives all of your documents. So let's say that priority deadline is January 15th. Let's say that you mailed your application January 13th. It might take a few days. So even though you mailed your application that day, it might take a while. So you want to plan ahead and turn it in as soon as you can. Okay, so y'all have heard me talk a lot about what it means to be an independent or dependent student, and I'm gonna go into that a little more. I do want to say that this counts for both the FAFSA and the TASFA. So the questions that you're about to see are both for the FAFSA and the TASFA, and this will help you answer any questions you may have. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read these questions. They are a few, so just bear with me. If you answer yes to any of the questions, you are considered an independent student. If you don't answer yes to any of the questions, you are considered a dependent student. Therefore, you will have to include parent information on your application. So, number 1, will you be 24 or older by January 1st of the school year for which you are applying for financial aid? 2, are you married or separated but not divorced? 3, will you be working towards a master's or doctorate degree? 4, do you have children who receive more than half of their support from you? 5, do you have dependents who live with you and receive more than half of their support from you? 6, are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? 7, are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? 8, at any time since you turned 13, were both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you in ward of the dependent court? Sorry, or ward or dependent of the court. Number 9, are you emancipated minor, or are you in a legal guardianship as determined by the court? And number 10, are you an accompanied youth who is homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? So again, I know those were a lot of questions. And if you answered yes to any of them, you are considered an independent student, and you do not have to include parent information. Okay, so let's say that you didn't answer yes to any of them, and you determined that you are a dependent student. The next question you're probably going to ask yourself is, which parent's information do I include? Again, this infographic is going to be for both the FAFSA and the TASFA, so you will use this information to fill both of those applications out. Okay, so this is a very cool infographic that was shared with us, and I think it's very helpful. So pretty much you want to start with the first question. Are your parents married to each other? I'm not going to go over the whole thing, just kind of like I'm going to go over a scenario, but you are more than welcome. We are going to share this link out in a follow-up email, so you'll have access to this to look at it in your free time. So again, the first question, sorry, are your parents married to each other? Let's say that you answer no. The next question you want to ask yourself is, do your parents live together? Let's say you answer no again. The next question, did you live with your parent more than the other over the past 12 months? Let's say that you answer yes. So in that case, you will be reporting info for both of those parents. Sorry, you will be including info for the parent you lived with the most. Let's say then you will ask yourself the question, has this parent remarried? If they have, you do not need to include any additional information. And if they have, then you will include information on your step parent. So hopefully this infographic just helps answer some of the questions you may have. This can be a great tool for y'all to use. If you're working with your coach will most likely bring this up just so you guys can see where do you stand. And also I want to point out that, you can go back to the other slide, I'm sorry. Yes, I want to point out that, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, if you live with them, they are not considered your parents. Therefore, you will not include their information. That's something that happens a lot where, maybe a student lives with her, with a sibling, and they think they have to include their, like their siblings' information. No. The only way you can include their information is if this is like ruled by a court, like if they adopted you. I also want to point out that legal guardians do not qualify you as a dependent student. You are considered an independent student if you have legal guardians. Okay, so let's say that maybe taxes haven't been filed. That is totally okay. The Foundation Communities is a nonprofit here in Austin that has those resources available for you. They can help you fill out your file for your taxes for free. They do have different locations, and I emphasize it is for free. If your parents maybe don't speak English, that is totally okay. They do have Spanish translators there to assist you. I'm not quite sure if they have another language, but definitely take some time to visit the website and learn more about what they have to offer.
Jess, I think we're going to go ahead and skip the scenarios. We are running a little low on time, so we want to get to the types of financial aid. So thank you so much for your section of the presentation. It was super informative. I'm sure all the students here are super impressed and grateful for all of your in-depth information. Thank you so much.
No, for sure. We'll pass it on to Czar, but please feel free to take some deep breaths. In the meantime, I know I shared quite a lot of information. Again, I do reiterate that please reach out to your coaches and drop your questions in the Q&A if anything comes up.
Okay, so for my section, I'm going to be talking about some types of financial aid that you might be able to be offered if you do the FAFSA or TASFA. So the first type of financial aid that I want to talk about are gift aid, consisting of scholarship and grants, meaning that they don't have to be paid back because, as I said, they are gift aid. So for scholarships, they can be private and institutional. Private scholarships are going to come from institutions, or I mean companies and organizations, and that you have to go to like third-party websites like niche or scholarships.com to apply for. But always remember that these applications should never ask for a payment, and if they do, it is likely that they are scams. Scholarships can also come directly from the institutions that you will be attending, so directly from your schools and stuff like that. And usually these are merit-based, so they look at your grades, your extracurricular activities, and test scores. Sometimes you might not even have to apply for these scholarships, especially if they're institutional. They can just take one look at your submitted SAT scores and see that you're eligible for some of the funding that they have. Sometimes scholarships can also be awarded based on financial need. There's a lot of different scholarships whose eligibility requirements are different, and there's definitely like funding for everybody to be able to kind of dip their toes into. For grants, if you submit your FAFSA application, you should be able to be offered these. Mostly they're awarded through your colleges or university that you're attending, and they're mainly based on financial need. Like we've said multiple times already, most of the time these are given on first come, first served basis. So it's always better to get on top of the FAFSA or TASFA applications as soon as you can. Another type of financial aid are loans. So to speak on private loans briefly, these are loans that you apply for from third-party lenders, and you'll be offered the loan or denied the loan based on your credit score. So these are places like Sallie Mae, I believe, have private loans. Other banks may also have private loans that you can apply to. Now, if you apply for the FAFSA, you will be offered federal or state loans. These are a lot better when it comes to their borrower terms than compared to private loans. They usually have fixed interest rates that are a lot lower than those private loans that I previously mentioned, and they're not awarded based on your credit score. You have to only apply for the FAFSA application, and you will be offered these loans through your financial aid awards from the colleges and universities that you apply to. Some things to note though is that loans must be paid back. So one thing that you have to do is your promissory note, is it? You have to basically sign an official document saying that you are going to be responsible for paying back these loans. Also, there are two types of federal or state loans, subsidized versus, oh, thank you, Josh, master promissory note. I totally forgot about that. So anyway, back to the subsidized versus unsubsidized loans. Subsidized loans are a little bit better, again, in borrower terms, in that they do not accrue interest while you're still in school, while unsubsidized loans, right when you take out the loan, they do start accruing interest rates. So that's definitely something to think about. Also, these federal or state loans have grace periods, and that's a cushion of time that you can take to kind of transition from being a student into paying your loans. Also, something that I want to say, loans should be last resort, and you should consider the amount that you take out seriously. So if you are basically offered a certain amount from your financial aid, it doesn't mean that you have to take out that exact amount that you're offered. Maybe think a little bit about how much you think you're going to be spending, kind of think about a budget in your head and accept like an amount that makes sense for you and your situation. Don't feel the need to take out all the loan amount because, like I said, these are amounts of money that have to be paid back. So just be mindful of that. Also, it is completely normal to take out loans. In fact, more than 50% of Texan students take out student loans. And Josh put in the chat something really, really helpful. General rule, don't accept more in loans than you expect to earn in salary after your first year of college graduation. And the last type of financial aid that I'm going to be talking about today is work study. So work study basically provides part-time jobs for students, allowing them to earn money to help pay for education expenses. You do have to find your own employment, and some schools do have their own portals where you can kind of apply for these on-campus jobs, like basically like Indeed, but it's just on-campus jobs, like I said. Also, being awarded work study does not guarantee you the job. Like a normal part-time job, you do have to apply for it, and there's going to be other people applying for it, and it's not a guarantee. Also, students can only apply for work study and do work study if you're using the FAFSA application. It's not eligible for the undocumented students or TASFA applicants. And work study positions are awarded based on financial need.
Great, thank you, Zar. I'll be talking a little bit about verification and what that means for you. So you can go ahead to the next slide. So it's not necessarily going to happen to everybody, but it can happen after you submit your FAFSA. Usually it doesn't happen after the TASFA because you've already submitted, along with the TASFA, you'll need to submit your tax transcript or your tax return with the TASFA, so they already have that information. What verification is when a school will ask for additional documentation as well as your FAFSA. They want to verify a few things, double check. So they'll ask for certain forms. It used to be that they only asked for a tax transcript to be mailed to their Office of Financial Aid. Now they have been accepting a copy of the tax return of that year, signed copy of it, but it really depends on the school and what they accept. So just keep that in mind. It usually happens if you did not use the IRS retrieval tool. If you put in all your financial information into the FAFSA manually instead of using the IRS retrieval tool, this will happen. Just keeping that in mind. Go to the next one. You know, if you get a message about a school requiring verification, contact your coach, learn about what the specific college requires. Some require just the form, just the tax transcript. Others require a special form to be filled out and uploaded to the system or emailed to financial aid office. So you'll request a tax return transcript and ensure everything is submitted to the financial aid office. So make sure that this is all being sent to the financial aid office in the right channels. So they're either going to want it mailed to them or they're either going to want it uploaded to the system. So make sure you know what they need. And then questions, we'll only take a